I've learned that we're all pretty much alike, no matter where you live or what you look like.
Well, I don't lock myself away. I enjoy my freedom. I enjoy New York City.
Some legends belt heartbreak ballads. Offstage, they hoarded electric chairs, haunted guitars, and enough wigs to launch a private hair museum. Country music's golden era glittered on stage, but behind the curtain lived collectors whose obsessions bordered on the bizarre. Their hidden stashes form a secret map of fear, triumph, and stubborn defiance, proof that even heroes of honky-tonk nights needed something solid to cling to while fame slipped through smoky barrooms. Tonight we tiptoe through labyrinths of glass cases and locked closets, guided only by the echo of songs that once rattled dance halls. Johnny Cash starts our journey, stalking dim auction halls in his black coat, hunting relics that matched his darker lines. Civil War revolvers, scarred sabers, and whisper it, brass emblazoned with a swastika, changed hands under flickering lights. The man in black claimed the past could not be healed, only carried. Each weapon became another heavy cord in his personal arsenal, as though history itself were an outlaw he had vowed to keep under watch. Merle Haggard followed with an obsession forged inside prison walls. After earning parole from San Quentin, he bought shackles, mugshots, and the actual electric chair the state once used to end sentences forever. Friends swore he touched the cracked oak seat each dawn, reminding himself how narrowly he'd escaped permanent silence. Redemption tasted sweeter, he said, when danger sat unplugged in the living room. Hank Williams Sr., the poet of pain, preferred a quieter cabinet of curiosities, medicine bottles promising miracle cures. Snake oil tonics with faded labels and corks coated in dust lined his shelves like backup singers. He told bandmates the clinking glass sounded like applause, a brittle echo for nights when whiskey muffled the real thing. Across Tennessee hollows, Loretta Lynn brightened the darkness with thousands of salt and pepper shakers. Cows, outhouses, astronauts, ceramic hot dog vendors. Her pantry resembled a carnival of tiny storytellers. She laughed that if fans ever stole one, she'd notice. Every pair had its own shelf, its own memory of coal dust childhood or Opry triumph. Patsy Cline surrounded herself with silent felines. More than 100 ceramic cats stared back from mantels, windowsills, and bathroom counters, their glazed eyes reflecting stage lights she would never see again. Close friends whispered the collection began after a fortune teller warned her 9 lives run out fast. So she bought backup lives in porcelain. Tammy Wynette's mansion offered something wilder. Rooms stacked floor to ceiling with wigs, honey blonde towers, pixie brunettes, bubblegum pink bouffants. She named several after-chart hits and rotated them like set lists, proof that reinvention could be reached with a single tug on elastic lace. Meanwhile, Willie Nelson refused to let a luthier heal the cracked face of Trigger, his battle-scarred Martin guitar. But his fixation stretched further. He scoured pawn shops for rare six-strings rumored to be cursed or haunted. Willie swore music felt richer when wood remembered pain, and so his ranch barns hid rows of ghost-infused guitars humming in the dark. Dolly Parton built an altogether sweeter kingdom. Porcelain dolls in frilly dresses, many miniature dollies complete with tiny sequined gowns. Guests joked they walked past 1,000 perfect smiles before meeting the real-size original. Dolly insisted each doll held a story she could gift a lonely visitor, and stories, not porcelain, were her true collection. Marty Robbins, speed demon turned singer, lined his den with more than 500 die-cast race cars. Organized by decade and paint job, the models formed a time-lapse of American horsepower. On stormy nights, he revved them down wooden tracks, recreating photo-finish victories his heart still chased. Porter Wagoner hid treasure in climate-controlled closets, rhinestone suits stitched by Nudie Cohn himself. Hundreds glittered under museum lights Porter installed in his basement. When headaches of the business cut too deep, he'd don 3 jackets at once, stand before mirrors and shimmer until worries scattered like confetti. Conway Twitty worshipped a different king, the one named Presley. His Elvis trove filled a Graceland Blue Room, Concert scarves, signed vinyl, even the partially chewed scarf Elvis hurled into screaming fans. On quiet mornings, Conway held the relic to his cheek, grinning like he'd borrowed stardust that would never wash off. Minnie Pearl never parted with hats. Beyond her stage topper, she hoarded bonnets, fascinators, derby caps still tagged with hand-drawn prices. Visitors entered her parlor beneath a floating ceiling of brims, each tilt reminding them laughter works best when worn proudly. Kitty Wells searched flea markets for antique buttons, shell circles, brass squares, painted bakelite moons. She strung thousands into jars, convinced each tiny closure had once kept a story safely fastened. Before recording sessions, she ran fingers through the jars, listening to the gentle rain of history. George Jones, the possum, loved tractors more than limousines. He scooped up rusted hulks from junkyards, towed them home, and restored them into candy-red portraits of second chances. The collection grew until neighbors swore the property rumbled like harvest season whenever George fired them up for a midnight ride. Buck Owens wired antique car horns into his studio walls. At odd hours, he'd slam a palm onto hidden buttons, punctuating riffs with Model T honks or steam engine blasts. The joke never got old. The horns were laugh tracks he could trust. Don Gibson chased cowboy spurs around Western auctions, some dated to the 1700s, ornate silver rowels that jingled like pocket change. He hung them over fireplaces, swearing they spun luck toward fresh melodies. Jim Reeves, grounded by tragedy he could sense more than outrun, collected foreign coins despite rarely leaving the States. He said holding a weathered peso or farthing tuned his ear to distant voices, opening melodies no radio could catch. Ernest Tubb pocketed every hotel key from more than 2,000 nights on the road. Each tag bore the city and date in red marker, a timeline of sleepless miles. He kept them in cigar boxes under the bus bunk, rattling like applause whenever the tires hit potholes. Charlie Rich turned inward, gathering his own autograph. Hundreds stacked in folders, signed at meet and greets, then secretly reclaimed. He compared loops and swirls, charting how fame changed his hand. Proof, perhaps, that stardom leaves scars even on ink. Still curious? Let's slide a flashlight deeper into the vault and dust off stories that refuse to fit inside glass cases. Johnny Cash once confided to a road manager that every antique rifle in his study had to be cocked and eased down before he left for tour, a ritual of tension and release mirroring his battle with pills. He joked the clack of hammers was the metronome for writing Ring of Fire. His wife June thought the habit reckless. Cash insisted it kept him alive, forcing him to respect the finality of each trigger. Merle Haggard's electric chair needed a custom permit just to cross state lines when he bought it at auction. Neighbors complained about the grim centerpiece on his front porch until Merle painted it sunflower yellow and strung Christmas lights around the headrest. Holiday visitors snapped photos, unaware it once delivered 2,400 volts. Merle poured eggnog and told them redemption shines brightest when you stare directly into the dark. Hank Williams Sr. labeled his medicine bottles with dates of performances where pain nearly crippled him. Each cork was a diary entry of aching ribs, migraines, or heartbreak. As morphine tightened its grip, Hank shook bottles like maracas in backstage corners, half prayer, half percussion. The clatter later echoed in his son's voice. Proof addictions can pass through blood as easily as talent. Loretta Lynn welcomed tourists to her ranch gift shop, yet few noticed a locked room behind the register. Inside waited the rarest shakers, hand-carved coal miners, a miniature moonshine still, even a President James K. Polk set. She claimed those were too personal to sell because they carried the coal dust and Tennessee politics that forged her identity. She'd unlock the door only for musicians who wrote honest lyrics. Patsy Cline's ceramic cats survived the plane crash that ended her life only because they were boxed up for a move. At the crash memorial, a friend placed a tiny calico figurine on a stump. Fans still leave ceramic kittens there, creating the strangest feline colony in rural Tennessee. Even in death, the collection keeps multiplying, as though Patsy's voice requested eternal backup singers. Tammy Wynette's wigs required their own hairdresser during tour. During a Florida heat wave, the road crew opened the wrong trailer to find wig heads melting like wax statues. Tammy wept, then laughed, saying even plastic had trouble keeping its head under the spotlight. That night she wore a slightly warped blonde tower that wobbled under stage lights like a drunken halo, and the crowd adored her resilience. Willie Nelson's guitar bunker includes a temperature-controlled humidifier and incense burners because he believes cedar spirits prefer a calm atmosphere. He schedules nightly listening sessions where guitars are played one by one in darkness, allowing each to speak its piece. Engineers who recorded the sessions swear the resulting hums and squeals merged into an unearthly chord that still sits, unexplained, on studio hard drives. Dolly Parton once commissioned a doll maker to craft miniature versions of her siblings in their childhood clothes, a gift to her mother. Each tiny figure held a toy representing the sibling's dream: a guitar, a paintbrush, a sewing kit. Dolly later admitted the project felt like freezing her family's humble beginnings inside crystal snow globes they could carry forever. Marty Robbins almost lost his model racers in the 1979 house fire. He dashed through smoke-grabbing display cases while firefighters yelled. Insurance covered the home, but Marty said if the cars melted, the victories would evaporate. He believed plastic could hold memory better than newspapers that yellowed too fast. Porter Wagoner's Sparkle Closet housed a hidden notebook where he ranked each suit by the audience response it earned. Suit 78, a sunset orange dazzler, scored 9 ovations in Austin but only 1 in Bakersfield. His data-driven wardrobe experiments predated modern analytics, another way collectors chase mastery. Conway Twitty displayed his Elvis artifacts in chronological order, creating a pilgrimage timeline. At the end, hung a mirror so visitors stared at themselves after walking through Presley's life. Conway insisted fans end the tour confronting their own reflection, grappling with what idol worship says about human longing. Minnie Pearl collected stories with her hats. Each time she traveled, she'd buy a local headpiece and ask the clerk's funniest childhood memory, then retell it on stage. The hats became memory chips storing jokes that otherwise would have vanished into dust. Kitty Wells organized buttons by the emotion of the garment they once closed: joy, mourning, work, romance. She'd dump a romance jar across a velvet cloth when searching for love song inspiration, letting the gleam of mother of pearl guide her chords. George Jones restored tractors until they gleamed cherry red, then promptly forgot the ignition keys. He preferred pushing them downhill and jump-starting the engine at the last second, a roaring metaphor for his stop-and-go sobriety battles. Buck Owens wired horns to motion sensors so visitors triggered honks by simply stepping inside the studio. First-time session musicians leapt a foot, dropping pickups and swear jars. Buck declared jump scares a creative icebreaker. Don Gibson's antique spurs doubled as percussion. In quiet rehearsal spaces, he'd jingle them against hardwood floors, recording the metallic rhythm track beneath smooth ballads. Few listeners knew they were tapping their feet to echoes of long-gone cattle drives. Jim Reeves polished foreign coins with a toothbrush while humming international lullabies he'd never learned the words to. He believed coins, like songs, passed through thousands of invisible hands carrying secrets no passport could stamp. Ernest Tubb once shipped an entire suitcase of hotel keys to a fan who wrote about losing his job after missing Ernest's show. The keys arrived with a note: "Every door can open again." The gesture birthed a legend of kindness that follows Tubbs' memory like neon glow. Charlie Rich analyzed his signature under a magnifying glass, circling tremors on days he felt anxious. He considered the autograph a seismograph of his soul, proof mental quakes left inked fault lines. These stories swirl into a single refrain: collecting is creative gravity. It pulls wandering spirits back to earth long enough to write one more verse, sing one more encore, or simply breathe without stage makeup. And if you find yourself judging a wall of wigs or a shelf of skulls, ask what private relic keeps you steady when the lights go out. Roy Acuff, hailed as the king of the Grand Ole Opry, waded into lakes of memory by hunting vintage fishing lures. His private tackle room glittered like an aquarium of chrome minnows and hand-carved wooden frogs, some dating back to the 19th century. Acuff insisted each lure carried the spirit of a vanished riverbank, and he would spin tales of small-town anglers while polishing brass treble hooks. During recording breaks, he sometimes dangled a line into a rain barrel behind the studio, just to hear the satisfying plunk of water greeting metal, a miniature echo of mud-brown rivers that raised his voice. Ferlin Husky's mansion, meanwhile, felt like stepping onto a vaudeville stage abandoned mid-joke. Dozens of ventriloquist dummies lounged in velvet chairs, frozen in chalk smile suspense. Husky claimed the puppets helped him rehearse banter, but housekeepers swore they heard wooden jaws clicking after midnight. He even traveled with a battered suitcase containing his favorite dummy, so a friendly face greeted him in anonymous hotel rooms where no one knew his real name. Critics called it creepy. Husky shrugged, saying nothing calmed pre-show nerves like an audience guaranteed to laugh on cue. Collectors, you see, chase permanence inside a world tuned to breakdown. Vinyl warps, applause fades, stage lights burn out, but a salt shaker, a spur, or a silent puppet endures. Psychologists call it object constancy, performers call it survival. By gripping talismans, they convince themselves that careers built on moods and ticket sales can be hammered into something that lasts. Each relic whispers, "You were here, you mattered," louder than any encore could. Yet danger shadows devotion. George Jones once revved a freshly restored tractor through a backstage loading dock, nearly flattening an amp stack before laughing it off as country cruise control. Patsy Cline's feline figurines toppled during the flight that killed her, shattering a window and letting cold air roar through the fuselage. The pilot never knew. Even harmless obsessions can tilt fate when fame multiplies their size and stakes. Fans become part of the story, too. Loretta Lynn's visitors leave miniature peppermills on her doorstep like pilgrims adding bricks to a shrine. Johnny Cash devotees mail antique bullets etched with lyrics, trusting the Man in Black's estate will archive them beside outlaw revolvers. The collections snowball, fed by people searching for a tangible handshake with history, a shortcut to stand closer to songs that once stitched broken hearts. Look around your own room. Maybe you see concert stubs, limited edition vinyl, a dusty guitar you never quite mastered. Each object is a breadcrumb leading back to a version of you that still sings in secret. The legends we explored simply chase that instinct at full volume, turning nostalgia into museums that double as mirrors. Their stories challenge us to ask, what private exhibit are we curating, and does it honor or haunt us? If one obsession today sparked a memory, perhaps Hank's rattling medicine bottles or Dolly's porcelain choir, share it below. Your comment might nudge another viewer to excavate their attic, to rescue an heirloom before history forgets its tune. Communities form around curiosities the way harmony forms around choruses, melody born from mutual oddity. So before the curtains fall, remember that legends never die. They just relocate into closets, barns, and glass cabinets. Subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next midnight tour through the artifacts of fame. Until then, keep collecting moments worth displaying, and may every strange souvenir guide you safely home when the stage lights go dark. One echo before we close the archive. Collections sometimes rebel. Porter Wagoner's rhinestone closet flooded when a cracked pipe burst, and for one breathless hour sequined suits bobbed in swirling fluorescent water like disco jellyfish until frantic roadies scooped water into drum cases. Willie Nelson swears 2 haunted guitars released feedback so violent that studio monitors cracked and the master tape warped, leaving a ghostly etching engineers still cannot erase. Roy Acuff admitted during a Twilight interview that the rainbow of fishing lures lining his den occasionally trembled on their pins whenever a summer thunderstorm rolled across Nashville, as though phantom fish they promised were still thrashing against invisible lines, refusing capture even in retirement.